Hello YouTube! Chrisiosity here. Today I'm going to be reading for you from a script that was written by a friend of mine. It references a controversial, unnecessarily controversial subject on YouTube. Anyway, the best way to explain it is to read it, so here goes. Why I dislike using autism as an insult. Today I'm going to talk about something I have held off speaking out publicly about for some personal reasons. This subject is quite sensitive for me, which is why I haven't spoken about it publicly before. I may end up turning off the comments for the first time on this video if it becomes a toxic cesspool. But I feel I want to speak out on behalf of the people too scared to speak out. I'm autistic and was diagnosed at a pretty young age. This alone is enough to make me the target of mockery on some parts of the internet. What bothers me is how, over the years, I have noticed an increasing trend of using the word autism as a pejorative to connote someone who is irrational, overreacting, someone stupid, and the like. I think it is sad that I have to explain why this is morally and ethically a terrible thing to do, but I feel I have to at this point. Firstly, I want to give some background into my experiences from being someone on the spectrum. When I was a child, I had a lot of trouble socializing with other kids. If it hadn't been for my sister, I probably wouldn't have had any friends at all until I was about 8 years old. I was often unaware of social norms and how to interact in meaningful ways with my peers, and so I was the target of a lot of bullying and felt very much so like an outsider. Later on in life, one of my parents had confided in me that they felt partially responsible for my lack of social success in primary school. They had told some of the other parents that I was struggling to make friends because I was on the autism spectrum, and asked if they could set up a playdate for me and the other kids. After finding out I was autistic, the parents instead instructed their kids to keep away from me and not associate with me. This also explains how the children knew to ask me questions about autism when I hadn't told anybody about it. Even other children would accuse me of being, I quote, retarded, because they heard I was. This right here shows how people with autism are seen as lesser than because parents felt the need to teach their children to hate us from such a young age. In high school, I'd hoped things would change and I would suddenly find that thing that made other kids popular. I hoped that I would shed my socially awkward self and become some popular girl, like the girls you see in movies succeeding socially. Of course, you don't just get to hit the reset button when it comes to high school, and I was always a bit of a dork. I harped on about video games I enjoyed, and I had trouble relating to what other kids would find interesting. The high school boys seemed to be obsessed with sex, and the high school girls really seemed to enjoy shopping. Both the boys and girls were all totally obsessed with gossip, however, and of course, being the socially awkward kid in school, a whole host of strange rumors went around surrounding me. Some were based on a grain of truth, and some were based on jokes I told that just sort of missed the mark and resulted in a full-fledged rumor spreading about something like me believing I could speak to dead people. It was about midway through high school that I felt demoralized, realizing that my place in school was not going to be as the popular kid who finally managed to find social success, but as the awkward, dorky kid. I felt alienated and depressed for a lot of my experience of high school, and really felt that I didn't belong around my peers. I never was open about being on the autism spectrum with the other people at high school, and so it wasn't really a knowing discrimination. It was more the result of being the different kid that made me somewhat of a target. So why am I telling you my life story? Good question. I'm telling you all of this because I know for a fact that my experience of being the weird dorky kid who had trouble making friends is not unique, especially regarding other people on the autism spectrum. Many of us suffer conditions like depression or anxiety in conjunction with autism, and I think that is the result of being misunderstood by society and struggling to interact with others. I am also well aware of the autistic people who don't mind autism being used as a pejorative, but I also know how I felt as a young person, feeling like I was alone and that I would be doomed to forever be trying to navigate through a social world as someone who struggled to understand social situations. I was scared that the feelings of being an outsider would persist and never fully leave me. I know that to the teenaged me, had I seen autism be used as an insult the way it is now today, I would probably just end up feeling like more of an outsider than I already did. This is the true reason I try to make people more aware of how this language can hurt people, because I'm not doing it from some personal offense or a personal feeling of hurt. It is strangely about that thing I supposedly don't have called empathy for others, where I imagine a younger me who had barely any friends at all, hearing the condition she suffered with to be used as an insult to mean someone who was being silly, overreacting, or acting stupid. I imagine she would have been further isolated by this and made to feel worse than she already did. So if you continue to use it, it is of course your choice, though this is just explaining why I will never condone the use of it and why I think you should really think about this before you say it yourself. Thank you.